Integrated Math 3 students, this is the last topic for this unit, and at this point you should have all the information and instruction that you need to be able to complete your assignments, and then we are going to have our test next week on I'll have it Tuesday for you guys. Okay, all the Delta Math practice is going to be very useful in preparing for that. If you've already completed Delta Math, you can obviously go back and work more examples to prepare. Okay, but we're going to be talking about the last topic, which is writing polynomial functions from a graph. So what I'll have you do is go ahead in your notes, draw a very simple sketch of this. Now you need to include the x values that are on here. Let me maximize that. Okay, include all these critical points. So put the y-intercept, the x-intercepts that are on here, and that's about it. You don't need to put the entire scale. Like the right side of the graph, you don't need all these x values. You don't necessarily need any of these y values down here. You will just want the ones that are important, because that's what we need to be able to write the functions from the graph. Okay, so I'm going to move this graph down a little bit, like right here, and we're going to go ahead and go through our steps. There's kind of there's two steps that we need to consider when we're trying to write the function. So first off, there's three. So first off, we want to identify x-intercepts and multiplicities. So remember, how do we find multiplicities? Well, that's going to be, let me actually change color. So for this, multiplicities, that is where it touches the graph, or the axis. That's what I meant to say, the axis, x-axis. Keep saying touches the graph, but it's really touching the x-axis is the more accurate way to put that. Okay, so let's go ahead and identify the x-intercepts. I'm going to go ahead and pause. You're going to tell me what are the x-intercepts to this question here, to this graph. So go ahead and put those in. All right, so for that, you should have put -7 as one of them, and then you should have put -2. Now, -2 has the multiplicity of 2 because it's just touching right there, okay? And that minimum, the extrema, is also a 0. That's sort of the other way that we described it. Okay, so that's step 1. That's all we really needed to do. Now, step 2 is put zeros into a factored function. So here's our general form. F of x equals a, and I already wrote this on the last lesson, x minus r1, x minus r2. I'm going to extend it a little bit to fit our situation, x minus r3, and we could keep this going for as many factors as there are, okay? So let's go ahead and do this with our example. First off, a, we don't know. Remember, that's concavity. We do know that it should be positive, right? It's going up on the right side. So we know that, but we'll talk about how to find it in a second. Let's go ahead and put in our x-intercept. So we'll leave a as a. What's the first x-intercept? Well, what's going to go in here? Well, we have to change the sign when we're going from a root to or a 0 to a factor. So that means this will be x plus 7. Same idea with this. This is a -2, multiplicity 2, so this will be x plus 2. And since it's multiplicity 2, I can get away with just putting plus 2 again, but what I'd rather you do, the easier way, is just write the 2 up here. And that's going to be our function. However, we need to figure out how to find this value for us to actually be done, okay? So let's go ahead, and that's the third and final step. There's not that many steps on this one. It's not as involved as the last video that I made. So this lesson should be quite a bit shorter after I do this, and then we'll do a couple examples. So for this value here, a, we need to we need to solve for it, okay? So to do this, so we're going to input that. That's our next step, solve for A. To do this, we need to fill in every other part. Like I need to find a value to plug in for the x's, and I need to find a value to plug in for this term right here, which is also known as y, by the way. So I need to find a point on the graph. So let's look at our graph again. Let's find a point on the graph that I know. It can't be the zeros, by the way. So I can't put -7 or 0, -7 or 0, -2. I need another point. Well, hopefully y'all are seeing a point that we can use. This one right here, okay? That is our y-intercept, and what is the values for this? And you usually want to use the y-intercept because we know the x value is always 0. What's the y value? Well, it's 7. Okay. So this is the y value, and this is the x value. So we're going to take those values and just plug them into our function so that we can solve for A, okay? So we're going to say plug in a point x, y. That's the direction. So I'm making this green and this is blue, okay? They go into the function. So we're going to rewrite this. F of x gets replaced by our y-intercept. So we're going to put that down here. Y-intercept is 0, 7. I'm going to keep using my color coding here. Okay, so let's do this. Instead of f of x, I put 7. A is going to stay as A. 0 gets put in for x in both places. All right, so then now we're just interested in solving for A. The end goal, we get A by itself. That's what we want, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. This is 7 equals A. This is going to be times 7. This is going to be 2 squared. We just keep going. This is 4. What's 7 times 4? That's 28. It's being multiplied. So how do I get the A by itself? Well, that's going to be division. So 28 gets divided from both sides. This is 7 over 28. That we have to simplify that. Okay, so the GCF on top and bottom is actually 7, so we get 1/4 is A. Why does that make sense for it to be 1/4 and it's positive? Well, it's going up, okay? So our final answer will be f of x equals, the A value starts first, so that's going in for A. So 1/4. Now we just put the rest of our function, x plus 7 and x plus 2 squared. And that's going to be the process that we're going to take to creating these functions from a graph. All right. Let's add a new page, and we're going to look at an example on Delta Math, and then we'll be done, and you can start practicing and preparing for your test next week. So let's go ahead. So there's a quadratic. We could do that. I want something a little more interesting. We'll do one of these right here. Okay, so let's do this one. First step, what are the x intercepts? Well, let's look at it. So it's going through -4 it's touching and 5 it's touching. So we know that -4 should be 1, but look how it bounces off. So that's that multiplicity. So this is a multiplicity 2. What is the other one? Jeez. Okay, the other one, we said it was touching at 5, so it's 5 multiplicity 2. Those are our zeros, okay? What does that make the degree? Well, it makes it even, and that should make sense because it's going down on both sides. They're going the same direction, so that's good. But that's not necessarily a part of this. Step 2, put it in factored form. I'll rewrite the factored form. Okay, so we're going to put ours in there. So f of x equals A. We leave A as A for now because we don't know it. x, so minus r1. Well, our first root is -4, so we flip that, remember? So plus 4. What do we do with the multiplicity? It becomes the square up here, okay? Then we have the same thing with the 5, except it's going to be x minus 5. We just flip that sign, multiplicity 2. Boom. Step 2 is done. We have at least the skeleton of our function. Step 3 is to pick a point that we want, which I'm looking right here. That's our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is, so we're going to plug in a point. So y-intercept is 0, -300. Okay. So we know that we're plugging this in, this, and we're going to plug, or that's y values. This is going to go in for the x values on here. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's going to be -300 equals, the a is going to stay, 0 plus 4 squared, 0 minus 5 squared. Let's go ahead and solve this. -300 equals a, 4 squared, -5 squared. This is going to give me, we're just going through our order of operations on this side, and then we're going to do inverse operations. So this is 16 times 25. It's positive 25, by the way. Don't mess that up. Let's see what that gives us, because I do not know what that is off the top of my head. 400. Okay, so we get -300 equals a times 400. Now, to get a alone, we're going to divide both sides by 400. And that's going to get us a equals, we're going to simplify this. This goes away. But -300 over positive 400 gives me -3/4. Okay? Doing GCF of 100. So that's my answer. This answer should make sense for an a value because we're going negative right here. So let's do our final answer and we'll see if it works over here. So f of x is equal to -3/4 x, this is plus 4 squared, and then x minus 5 squared. Let's type it in. So on here you can of course use the pad. So it's going to be -3. You hit division, will make a fraction for you. Then we go over. Let's put parentheses x plus 4, and you square it, and then x minus 5, and then we want to square that. We submit our answer, and we get it correct. Okay. Now it shows some of the steps in here. Full function, how to find. They're using the y-intercept the same way we are. Okay. So that's the process. All right. I'm not going to show any more examples. Hopefully this is enough. Again, if you watch this video and you need to come back to it, I would recommend going to my YouTube instead of using PlayPosit. PlayPosit is there just to make sure that I'm able to grade that you did watch it. The YouTube is going to be more efficient for you to like go back and look at, because you can fast forward and do all that stuff that you need to. Okay. So I'll stop the video there, and more information will be coming soon about like the test and all that.